Hey guys, the Amphibian and Fish channel. I may have started a stream and then it died out on me again. Something happened with my being able to do the stream. I think I changed the name too much and it didn't like it. Hey Jason James, how's it going, man? I decided to run my stream tonight on the question that seems to be going around all the live streams, which is, what would you put in a 10-gallon tank? Or how many Oscars would you put in a 10-gallon tank? So basically, I just want to do a Q&A, question and answer live stream to give people a chance to ask questions and stuff. And hey, Victor. Hey, Nisi. Hey, Dank. I didn't catch Jeremy's stream. He said he was gonna take a break. Sergeant Tank. Is he talking about slowing down on his output of live streams? So basically, I thought that what we would talk about is the joke. Hey, Priscilla. Hey, King Lee. Yeah, Nisi. That's exactly what I wanted to talk about is what would you actually put in a 10-gallon tank? And 10-gallon tanks are pretty small. I think the key word in that question is you, because people are always asking, what would you put in a 10-gallon tank? I'm getting a 10-gallon tank. What would you put in a 10-gallon tank? And I think that asking someone else what you should put in a 10-gallon tank is probably a bad idea, in the sense that the person has no idea what your water parameters are. The person has no idea what you like. So I think it's incumbent on the person that's asking to understand what their water parameters are. What's your pH out of the tap? What's your TDS out of the tap? Or what is your KH, GH readings out of the tap? And then you can start to narrow down what it is that you'd actually like to put in a 10-gallon tank, because you understand better what fish go with your water parameters, what invertebrates go with your water parameters, what shrimp, what snails, what Oscars go with your water parameter. And then you can start to decide what it is that you could put in a 10-gallon tank. And then, of course, we need to think about how big of a fish Hey, Green Thumb Aquatics, welcome to the stream. I'm not sure, Priscilla, because that would mean that I would have to pick the tacos up to put them in the tank, and I would probably eat most of the tacos before I could put them in the tank. So the old saw is inch per gallon. So that means that you could put 10 inches of fish in a 10-gallon tank. But if you put a 10-inch Oscar in a 10-gallon tank, that fish is not going to survive for a week, probably. It'll probably jump through whatever lid you have on the tank and not stay in the tank. Hey, Corona Ken. I hope you enjoy your dinner, man. We're talking about what would you put in a 10-gallon tank. So we can't go too big. You know, you could put grow outs of large fish. You could put fry from Dempsey's or um, any Central American cichlid fry could go in a 10-gallon tank. Hey, every Sunday is kind of happy. My African cichlids have internal parasites and I don't want to buy fish Zoll. I have raised them the temperature and added more CO2. Any suggestions? Yeah, raising the temperature and adding CO2 is probably not a good idea. From my experience, higher temperatures have less oxygen in the water, and then you're going to add CO2 to the water, force CO2 into the water. That's going to expel more oxygen, and your fish are going to have a hard time. Hey, Laura. Hey, Charles. Welcome to the stream, guys. If you want to try to cure internal parasites without buying medications, then I would recommend either watching Inquisitive Fish Guy's video on treating for internal parasites and using some similar kind of I don't know, you really need a medication to rid your fish of internal parasites. There are some people, including Jack Watley going way back, that say simply feeding garlic to your fish will rid most internal parasites, that a lot of flukes and parasites hate garlic. So if your fish are still eating, then I would suggest that you try garlic if you don't want to buy medication, but you're probably going to have a hard time getting rid of internal parasites without resorting to a dose of Epsom salts and either garlic or some of the internal medications that are available. Hey, Steve O's Aquatics, welcome to the stream. Hey, Matthew, welcome to the stream. I'm pretty much throwing this stream open to questions and answers, and I will give you the best answer I can, or if I am completely incapable of giving you a cogent answer, then I will throw it open to others and tell you that I really can't give it to you. Yes, Green Thumb. In a 10-gallon, I'd go with a bunch of the same microfish like CPDs or Dariodarios. Yeah, those are good choices. It's, hey, Angelo. Those are good choices to make. If you're, you can either soak. Every Sunday, it's kind of happy says, how do I put garlic in? Do I shave it? You could shave raw garlic and drop it in and see if your fish will eat it. You can also grind it up and no, we're looking at a 75-gallon right now, Charles. There's some new moss and some new moss from L.R. Brett's and some new plants from Aquarium Co-op in my wife's tank. This is basically the area where we're looking to set 10 green jade shrimp down at and hope that they don't get pestered to death by those praycocks. It's getting a little bit ahead of me, but that's fine. I think that what one would have to do to decide what to put in a 10-gallon tank is strip away everything that would not match your water parameters, that would not match your temperature that you're going to. Are you going to put a heater in this tank? If you're not going to put a heater in this tank, then your normal house temperature will dictate what fish you can and can't have. If you're going to put filtration, every Sunday is kind of happy says I would put hill stream loaches, and hill stream loaches would be a wise choice, but hill stream loaches do like some steady water flow, so you're going to have to put some kind of filter, probably. You might get away without them. A lot of people say that they come from swift water in nature, but that they are just fine with a slower stream. I think that a lot of fish that come from rapids or from swift flowing streams or rivers require a lot of oxygen in the water, and so to get that you need a lot of surface agitation, you need a lot of water flow. But it's possible that a couple of sponge filters would produce the same results. So all of these are things that should go into Hey Corey too. I gave all my South American cichlids to my sister-in-law to go with her South Americans. I'm hoping to go full African. It's just what I'm most interested in. Corey, that's exactly the point of what would you put in a 10-gallon. This talk that we're doing is that don't expect someone else to tell you what you like. If South Americans are what fascinate you, then go South American. If Africans are what fascinate you, then by all means keep Africans. Now, in the sense of our talk, you wouldn't be able to put very many African cichlids in a 10-gallon tank. You might get away with a pair of cribs. Hey, Sergeant Tank. How's Jeremy today? So, my point is that the size of a tank, in this case a 10-gallon tank, and the parameters of the water that you have coming out of your tap, and the temperature that you are going to or willing to keep this tank at, and the filtration that you have to put in this tank will all go into the process of deciding what kind of fish would you put in your tank. So if you ask somebody a question on any other forum or live stream and say, what would you, meaning the other people, put in this tank, whatever size it is, I would suggest that you also add your water parameters, your filtration, your substrate, whether it's going to be planted or not, and the temperature that you're willing to keep that tank at. Because all those things are critical for someone else to help you decide what fishes you possibly could put in a 10-gallon tank. Every Sunday is kind of happy, says, could I put a blood parrot cichlid in a 10-gallon tank? Well, it depends. If he was an inch long, juvenile, then yeah, you could keep him in a 10-gallon for several months. But a blood parrot cichlid is going to get too large to really keep happily in a 10-gallon tank. And Corona Ken brings up the very best point of this whole question, which is why people ask it jokingly. And that is that 10 gallons of water is very little buffer capacity for a school of fish, for one slightly larger fish. Like you could probably put a pea puffer in a 10-gallon tank with a bunch of plants and, I don't know, maybe a cory or a shrimp or something that would be a bottom cleaner, and the pea puffer might attack them continuously, but You would have to do extreme. See you later. Every Sunday is kind of happy. Thanks for stopping by. Because the fact that only 10 gallons of water is between you and total disaster, i.e., if you have two fish in the tank and one of them dies, there's only 10 gallons of water and whatever plants and bio you have in that tank to absorb the ammonia spike that's going to be created by one little fish dying in a 10-gallon tank. So yes, if you choose to put something in a 10-gallon tank, you must understand that you have to watch that tank continuously, that you need to be aware of what's going on in the tank. You need to be ready to do 50% water changes twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, depending on the amount of fish that you are going to put in your 10-gallon tank. 10-gallon tanks are wonderful to have. They can be set up quickly. They can be used to grow out fry. They can be used to treat fish in some sort of medication cheaply, because you don't have to use a lot of medication in a 10-gallon tank. Whereas if your fish is normally from a 100-gallon tank, then you've got to buy 10 times the medication and treat the whole tank, everything in it. So with a 10-gallon tank, you can do a world of things. I raised many a Dempsey fry in 10-gallon tanks, and I would have a row of them going and put 10 or 20 fry in every tank, and Dempsey's can have 800 fry sometimes. So it took me a lot of 10-gallon tanks to spread out a full clutch of fry from a single Dempsey spawn. So in a 10-gallon tank, you can observe the fish more closely. There's less water between you and them. There is it's easier to interact with them if you need to catch one, because it's less water and less stuff in the tank for you to fight around to try to catch one. It makes a 10-gallon tank is a handy thing to have for an aquarist. James McDade says, and welcome to the stream, James, it's ironic that new guys will often start with small tanks while a large tank is relatively easy mode. And if you've watched any of my videos, you'll know that I always stress over tanking your fish, not overstocking your tank, just for that reason. Because the difference between having one fish in 10 gallons and one fish in 100 gallons is immense, in the sense that if something goes wrong with the water quality, you've got all this buffer between you and your fish dying. Doesn't mean that your fish aren't going to die. It just means that there is more lag time between something going wrong and your fish dying. If the power goes out, 100 gallons of water is going to have a whole lot more oxygen in it for that one fish than 10 gallons is going to have in it natively for that fish. That fish in the 10-gallon is going to be starving for oxygen and at the top gasping much more quickly than the one in the 100-gallon will be. Now, putting one little fish in a 100-gallon, that's probably overkill, but it very much is wise in the sense of giving yourself, I mean, this hobby is tough. It's not easy to understand the cycle, the nitrogen cycle. It's not easy to recognize what's going wrong with our fish sometimes. I mean, this is part science and part hobby. So there's a lot of science involved. If you don't have a microscope that you can quickly do a smear, a gill smear, or scrape the body of the fish or a fin and do a hey, the fish life. I like all that stuff that you've got in a box. I'm looking forward to your next stream. Yeah, James. That's my point exactly. I am a firm believer, but here's the rub. Yeah, I saw that you were talking about having copepods. I'm not sure exactly what to tell you about that. One of the reasons that a lot of beginners end up with a 10-gallon tank, I'll try to be there, Sam. One of the reasons that a lot of people end up with a 10-gallon tank is because they go into PetSmart or they go into a pet store and they've got their kids with them, and their kids start yammering about wanting one. Ooh, I want that fish. Ooh, I want that fish. And they look at the fish and see that it's $10, and then they look at the tank and see that it's $40, and they look at the lights and see that they're $40, and they look at the filtration and the air pump. The money starts to get in people's heads when they're buying a tank. So they start trying to save money every way they can, and they end up buying a 10-gallon tank instead of a 40-gallon tank or a 55. I'm a firm believer that most people that are getting into the hobby for the first time and really want to try to have a success with it should probably get about a 55-gallon and try it out, see how it works for them. Now, 55-gallon and a stand and lights, that's going to set you back a couple of $100 or more. But if you're going to spend $50 on fish, you've got to think about that investment when you put it towards what size tank you're going to keep your fish in. What's my favorite size tank? Well, I really enjoyed my 150s when I had one. 150 gallons is really a nice tank if you're going to keep larger Central or South American cichlids and expect them to be able to breed and to have other fish that match them in the tank. So I really like a 150. I don't have any 150s right now. The price of them these days is probably so outrageous that I don't know when I will ever think about having a 150-gallon tank. But that's probably my favorite size tank, just for the footprint being wide and deep enough for almost any fish that you want to keep, and for the quality of life that you're offering your fish. 150 gallons is a lot of water. When that tank breaks and it's in your living room floor, it's a lot of water. You're looking at 2 inches of water sloshing around in your living room. So, you know, if a 10-gallon breaks, you can clean it up with a towel. So there's a lot of, pros and cons to weigh with different size tanks and different worst case scenarios and things like that. A 150-gallon tank's probably going to ruin the sheetrock on your walls and potentially short out your electric and create all kinds of havoc, whereas a 10-gallon's going to make a mess. But I think I think really most beginners that can afford it, that have the money to do it, should probably start with a 55-gallon tank just because it's large enough to give enough buffer between disaster and anyway, that's my opinion on the issue. Yeah, Corey too says he's got a quarantine fish in a 10-gallon Sterilite tub with a sponge filter, and it's working great. Yeah, you don't, when we say tank, it doesn't actually have to be a glass tank that you can look into. It's very good to, use plastic containers as long as it's not something that you're going to long-term large amounts of water. I wouldn't advise a whole rack of 300-gallon plastic containers. You could do it, but getting in and out of them, changing water, the destruction that might occur when the plastic finally dries out and starts cracking on you. Some of them won't. If you get Rubbermaids, if you get a decent make of a plastic container, I'm talking about like Corey 2's talking about, the little plastic containers. Eventually those things are going to break down much quicker than a glass tank will. But for a temporary situation where you're quarantining a fish or you're treating a fish or you want to give a fish a salt dip or you want to give them a dip in some other kind of medication, that's always a good thing. So, back to what would you put in a 10-gallon tank? My personal preference is to keep fish that are similar in their origin location. So if I'm going to put 6 dwarf neon rainbows in a tank, but a 55 looks huge when it's your first tank. I think that also puts people off. Also, a large tank will dominate a living room. Most just want a small tank in the corner. Corey 2 says, my first 55 was the biggest tank ever to me. Of course, that was 15 years ago. Angelo, when I say deeper, Angelo says deeper is better than longer, and as a question. And depth is the distance from the front of the tank to the back of the tank. Height is the distance from the bottom of the tank to the top of the tank. So when I say depth, I mean how wide is the footprint? My 110 gallon has a very tiny footprint for a tank over 100 gallons, but it's because it's much higher than it is deep. Depth meaning from the front of the tank to the back of the tank. So it severely limits the fish that you can keep in a tank that size that are going to get bigger than, say, 10 inches long, because they're not literally going to be able to turn around in the tank, and that will severely stunt a fish's growth that can't turn around in a tank comfortably. Now, I have severely over-tanked my fish in that tank. I have 15 lemon tetras, which go about an inch. I have 9 Beckfortii pencil fish, which go about an inch and a quarter. I have 6 reed tetras, which go about 3/4 of an inch. I have 6 L260s, which will max out about 3.5. Hey, Johns, welcome to the stream. And I have 5 teleocyclic monogrammas, and they'll go 5 inches at the most when they're completely grown out. So I've put almost nano fish in a very large tank just because I want the tank to be able to absorb one of the fish dying without me having to rush and completely do a 50% water change. Over tank your fish. And yes, a 55-gallon is imposing in the sense of if you've never had a fish tank before and you set this tank up, it's imposing in the room that it occupies. But I honestly believe that if we want new hobbyists to succeed, that we need to stress larger tanks. Yeah, James, they can be a pain in the butt. And you're using deeper as the measure from the bottom of the tank to the top of the tank. Depth in my mind is from the front of the tank to the back of the tank. Height is from the top of the tank to the bottom of the tank. So I would say height. I really think that PetSmart selling you a 10-gallon tank, and they're set up for a 10-gallon tank, and then selling you 25 fish to put in that tank is going to cause more people to dislike the hobby than PetSmart saying, you know, for the amount of fish that you want, you should really get a 55-gallon tank. I know it's a lot more money. I know it's a lot more work involved in changing the water and in filtering that much water, but you're probably going to be better off with these 25 fish that you want. Yeah, Johns, unless you're going to keep fish like discus or angelfish that can get plate-sized and have huge fins, those kinds of fish need a tank that is taller than other tanks. But most fish would be perfectly happy in a frag tank, which is barely over a foot tall. You know, they're just not, it's not that important that they have a lot of depth in the tank. Yeah, Nisi, 55s are pretty tall. But in the case of a 55, the footprint is almost perfect in the sense of how much room there is in that tank to keep fish. One of the big issues with the footprint of a tank is how much area there is for gas exchange between the water and the air. So the more air area that you can get, hey Island Queen, welcome to the stream. The more area of the water on the top of the tank. Yeah, James, frag tanks are just like that. They're about 15 inches high and maybe 30 or 40 inches deep and like 4 foot long. So there's much more surface area for gas exchange. And anytime you can add surface area to your water, I mean, basically that's what we are doing when we agitate the surface of the water. We're causing the surface of the water to come up and down or make waves. And by doing that, we create more air exchange surface area. In my 110-gallon tank, because the height is so much more than the depth is, I have my Fluval 404 output pumping straight from the back corner of the tank over the top of the water and splashing on the front glass. Because I'm creating all that air exchange potential while that spray of water is crossing through the air towards the front of the tank, and that when it hits and splashes on the front of the tank, it creates a downward flow that is just full of bubbles, just tiny, tiny bubbles, and all of that creates more air exchange surface for the water in that tank to be highly oxygenated. A 10-gallon tank is not going to have that surface area. Valley Fish, I have 3 tanks up and running now. And I say I have 3 because my wife got my wife a 75-gallon for Christmas, and that is up and running. And I've got a 110-gallon, and I've got my old quarantine tank, my 20-gallon, is up and running full of shrimp. Valley Fish, I've been keeping fish for 30 years. So I have had up over 750 gallons of water in a house before. When I was line breeding Dempsey's, when I lived in Plano, Texas, I had tanks on every flat surface in my house because I had to have so many 10s and 20s to grow out my Dempsey's to the point where I could tell what they were going to look like. About 3/4 of an inch, you could tell what a Dempsey's markings are going to be for most of its life. And I mean, it changes a little as they mature, but you get a good look. Have I ever thought of making a customer tank? Custom tank. That's much better.
All your tanks are custom.
Corey, enjoy your meal. My favorite filters, it depends on the tank that I'm running, Laura. I have, in my 20-gallon tank, I have 2 40-gallon sponge filters. In my 110-gallon tank, I have a undergravel filter on my planted side. I have an old 100 Whisper hang-on back filter with hot rodded with sponges on the intakes and biomedium in the canister part. And I have a 404 Fluval canister filter that I run with lava rock, bio rings, some denitrifying material in one of the canisters, trays, and that's about it in that 404 Fluval. In my wife's tank, we have 2 sponge filters and my other 404 Fluval running it. And it also has a sponge on the intake. So I'm kind of all over, all across the map. I have yet to try a matin filter, and when I get this 55 cleaned, a new stand built for it and resealed, I will probably set it up with a matin filter in it, because I really like the process that a matin filter allows. I think it's a good use of a small portion of your tank. Yeah, James, early on, that's all I ever used was under gravel filters. That's what we used back in the 70s and 80s, were under gravel filters and little box filters that fit in the tank. And a plastic box that you would fill with filter floss and activated carbol. Jeremy, I don't think I really have a favorite Ancestris species. I like the fire reds. I like some of the wild caught ones, in the sense of some of the other stranger looking species that get a little larger. Honestly, I have never kept an Ancestris, so I can't really tell you exactly what my favorite is.
We're about to, though. We're going to get a green phantom.
Yeah, my wife's reminding me that we may get albino Ancestris. She wants to put some kind of algae eater in her tank, and we're casting about for something that's small enough to not threaten her shrimp, and yet will do a decent job at cleaning the tank. The L200's a lure card, honey. It's not an Ancestris.
Okay.
Yeah. She really wants the L200, the green phantom pleco, but I'm afraid that it's going to be dangerous for the shrimp. They're not exactly carnivores. They're mostly herbivores, but they go 7 inches fully grown, and I'm just not sure that fish isn't going to predate on shrimp.
Do any of them know?
Whether
Ask them if any of them.
Jeremy, my wife wants to know if you've had any experience with L200s, the
Green phantom.
the green phantom L200 pleco. That's what this background is my wife's tank, located on the area where the Mopani wood is. It now has 2 different bunches of Pilo moss that we got from Lucas Brett's, and this in the center bottom is some rare form of moss that he couldn't remember the name of. I don't think he even remembers what it is. There's several Japanese and Asian mosses that are rarely imported into the United States, and I think that that's what this is. It's too green to be weeping moss, but I think it's probably some sort of similar to, it's not Christmas moss, it's not Valley Fish. I have 3 colors of Neocaridinias. I have the cherry shrimp. I think I also have some fire reds, some golden backs, and some blue dreams that I got from Lucas Brett's, lrbaquatics.com. And I have them all in the same tank. I'm not sure exactly what kind of result I'm going to get. I'm probably mixing the lines a lot, although I do now have juvenile blues, shrimplets that are blue, but mostly what I'm getting is a ton of cherry fire shrimp babies. They're breeding like crazy. The golden backs and the blue dreams are not breeding near as much. Now, of course, I may be misstating that in the sense of I may be getting blue and golden back mixed in with my fires and cherries. My wife and I ordered for her tank right here on this piece of wood where this moss is, and the filter is just to the right of the Mopani wood, the filter sponge, is where we're going to put 10 green jade shrimp from Flip Aquatics. Luke Diesel or Rob is sending us those. They're imports that he kept for 4 weeks under observation, and they will ship May 1st, which is just right around the corner. And so that's why we got these last plants and moss, was to try to create a situation where the shrimp will be happy in that tank.
What'd you do, take a picture of my tank?
I stuck the camera in there and let it run for 7 or 8 minutes and used it for a background. Valley Fish, my water parameters, my TDS. Last year my TDS was in the 300 range, 300 to 400 almost all year long. And this year, this last winter, it dropped down to about 180. But I did not think that it was wise for me to try to keep excuse me, Caradenia shrimp in that high a TDS. And at the time when I was looking to get shrimp, I did not have my RO set up yet. I now have an RO, so I could keep Caradenias. But I'm new to shrimp keeping, as in three months ago I got these, or 2 months ago I got these. So I'm still pretty tentative about them, about doing water changes, and you know, I'm afraid I'm going to crash my whole tank. It's not that they're so delicate, it's that they're so sensitive to quick water changes. They don't like big changes. And so I kind of hold my breath every time I do a water change. I literally have a gallon jug that I am using, and I fill it up with hot water from my tap. And because my hot water has a much higher TDS, and I'm trying to keep my TDS in my shrimp tank up over 350, so I run water out of the hot side because of all the scale that's built up in the tank. And I pour it into a gallon jug, and I put a water drip, you know, air stone on one end and drop it into the 1 gallon, and then a line valve on the other end, and screw it down where it's almost completely closed, and let that water drip in over a period of a day, so that I'm not doing any kind of serious water change that quickly affects these shrimp. I'm drip methoding my water changes. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but I just feel much safer doing that. Yeah, Valley Fish. that's what we're thinking with the 75 that my wife has. That's you're looking at on the background here. It's uh, it's going to be interesting to see the fish life species. In other words, it's not been named. It's not had the classification work done on it, so it's species. It's going to be interesting to see if that 75 is going to be conducive to 10 shrimp breeding, because everybody that I see and talk to says go with a 20 gallon or a 10 gallon or a 40 gallon. That once you get 40 and above in gallons, that shrimp don't always breed like they should, because the males have to swim all over that entire area to find the female, and they may not find them fast enough. So it's going to be interesting to see. We've got these praecox rainbows in this tank that you can see swim by every now and then. And yeah, Valley, that's one of the reasons why I've stayed away from Caridina, because I think they are more sensitive than Neocaridinias are. And to start out in shrimp keeping, I've kept all kinds of fish, all kinds of, snails and fish and frogs and turtles, but I've never kept shrimp. And I mean, I feel like my skills are to the level, my understanding of water is to the level where I can, I've got a shot at doing well with them, but I'm just tentative about my water changes and what I put in the tank and, that kind of stuff, how I feed them. Did I answer your question, Fish Life? What does SP stand for?
I
Yeah.
didn't hear you answer it, so I wrote the answer.
Yeah, I answered it. I'm just not sure whether he understood me or not. It looks like on this little loop, I think I got like a 7-minute loop to run on this background. That looks like you get to see the rainbow fish make one pass in front of the camera. They're midwater swimmers.
There they go.
Yeah, see them going across. They're midwater swimmers, but they seem to like to stay near the bottom in this tank. I'm not sure if it's them being afraid of something or them still not. I mean, what, they've been in that tank now for a month?
4 months.
Yeah, it's not a
And more
couple.
than a month.
Yeah, probably 5 weeks or so. But they're friendly little fish, and they're sure boisterous. I've never kept rainbows before either, so it's been interesting for me to study them and watch their behaviors. I'm not sure if any of you have recognized it yet, but my wife, Jordan Elaine, is her YouTube channel and name. She has finally gotten up a couple of her PowerPoint presentations that deal with her research science work at the American Printing House for the Blind and are mostly centered on lighting.
For humans.
So the 2 videos that she's got up now are about lighting, but they're also more centered towards people instead of fish and plants. But I would highly recommend that you check those out if you are interested in lighting issues and lighting information. Thanks, Jason. She has many years in on researching it. And I'm sure she's going to tailor some of her presentation towards fish keeping.
Yes,
I know she's still doing research on exactly how to tailor it to fish keeping, but the lighting information. Well, Nisi, she's not really that used to YouTube yet, so I'd hate to cut her loose on banning all of you all at once.
How do you get a wrench?
I have to give it to you.
Oh, okay.
Island Queen, look for a comment by Jordan Elaine. I got you, Nisi. I understand it. I understood who Swain was.
I like Swain. That's kind of like a cross between Swag and Dwain.
Or Swine and Dwayne.
See, I was giving you the good view.
Click on the link that Nisi put up and see if that goes to you.
Okay.
But you can, Island Queen, you can go to her name where she commented and click on the 3 buttons on the right side of her name, and it will say go to page. I'm going to give her a little more time to get used to YouTube before I start foisting responsibilities and moderating abilities on. I've pretty much got a mod wall in here, so I'm not worried about trolls at this point. Everybody that showed up at my first live stream I thought was worthy to give a mod wrench to, so I got plenty of mods.
I think she sent me ahead with something about gaming.
Yeah, I saw that, but maybe it's because of where she's sending it from. I can.
I went there and
You can. Oh, I have to do it because you don't have mod powers. You have to have mod powers to put a link in your. I can do it, but it's just as easy for somebody to just click on the 3 buttons at the right-hand side of the name.
yeah.
There's my wife's channel. Ouch, Jason James. That's pretty rough, slipping in a shower and knocking yourself out. Guess it's a good thing you were face up, huh? And I'm surprised it took 4 hours for you to wake up from the ice water spraying on you. You must have hurt yourself pretty good. Did you go and get yourself checked for a concussion? Valley Fished asks if I run tops on my tanks. I have a old 20-gallon fluorescent light fixture top on my shrimp tank because I'm kind of worried about them crawling out. It still has the opening at the back, so I don't have them completely blocked in. But so far I haven't noticed any crawling out. My 110-gallon, I have I have a cover on one side of it completely. It also, the Oceanics have that Euro brace in the middle that's really wide, like 12, 14 inches of the center is covered with a Euro brace. And then I have it completely open on the other side. I think I've had one fish jump so far. One lemon tetra jumped on me way back when I first put them in. Urgent Care says relax and check back Monday. Yeah, well, I mean it's just dangerous to let a possible concussion go without taking the necessary. Yeah, Jason, I'd say you need to slow down. Nisi asked, what do you think of surface or protein skimmers? When I feed green beans, it makes a terrible mess in my tank. Nisi, let's see if I can remember this correctly. I knew at one time. It is I know it's the salt in salt water that helps the water foam, which makes a protein skimmer work because it keeps foaming up and bubbling when it's venturied, and that way the surface film, the biofilm that's on the surface of the tank, keeps getting bubbled up and collected in a cup, and it keeps removing proteins and other things from the surface of the tank. But fresh water will not bubble up exactly the same as salt water does. I used to know what it is that's about salt that makes water foam like that. Maybe it's that it softens it. I can't, although saltwater tanks are really hard. So there's something about the property of having that density of salt in the water that allows it to foam continuously. Whereas a freshwater, if you put a protein skimmer on a freshwater tank, it is going to not foam continuously. You may get some foam out of it if it's a really strong, changes viscosity. Yeah, maybe that's what it is, but I'm not sure exactly. I can't remember. I knew at one time, but I can't remember because I've thought about doing that myself, trying to get rid of impurities in the water. A lot of times you will have a surface slick. You look in that tank and instead of seeing clear water moving around, you see this oily film on the surface of the tank, and that is basically what a protein skimmer gets out of the tank, is that surface film, biofilm, oil slick, whatever you want to call it.
Couldn't you just absorb that with a paper towel that you lie on the top?
Yes, you could use a paper towel and absorb it, but unfortunately, hey Kyle's Wild World, welcome to the stream, man. A surprise. Okay, I have been calling you Aquatassi all this time. Is it Aquatassi as opposed to Aquatassi with the emphasis on the second A? Because I don't want to be saying your name wrong. Well, I just thought about that the other day. You said in one of Bob's live streams how many people had been mispronouncing your name all the time. Yes, it is what? Now, you can't do that. You can't say that it's... I've been using Aquatassi all this time? Because that's the way it looks like. Aqua Sassy. Yeah, we didn't really answer Nisi's questions very well. I think, Nisi, that green beans are a great thing to feed your plecos and stuff, but you put aquatacy, 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 aquatacy. Well, that's really because I've been saying Tassie, like Tallahassee, Tassie, aquatacy. Okay. I'll try not to make that mistake again. You're just going to have to do a lot of water changes, Nisi. If green beans are a great thing to feed, but you're right, they break up, they scatter all over the tank, and you're just going to have to do a lot of water changes to make up for that. Yay, me. I ought to just call you Andrew and be done with it, but aquatacy sounds like something out of who's the
Having a brain fart.
Having a brain fart. I'm having a senior moment while I try to remember something that I want to express my.
You thinking of Jules Verne?
No, not Jules Verne. The German guy that did so much. Or maybe he's Dutch, or maybe he's English. I'm not sure. The one that his son is now doing stuff.
Are you talking about Cousteau?
Yes, Cousteau.
He's French, honey.
Oh, he's French.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, aquatacy sounds like something Cousteau would say. And I'm here to tell you that getting old is not for sissies, because you can't remember squat. French, yeah. If I could have remembered his name, I could have told you his derivation. Jacques Cousteau. Hey, Mikey8379. What fish I am going to get next is probably going to be what fish my wife gets next.
That's right.
And she wants more rainbows and some kind of pleco to clean the bottom of the tank. And she loves green, so we thought about an L200 green phantom pleco. There you go, aquatacy. Happy wife, happy life. Have a good evening, Angelo. Thanks for stopping by the stream. So the next fish that I'm going to get is probably going to be my wife's jade green shrimp that are coming in from Loop Diesel from Flip Aquatics. Rob is shipping us 10 of his import shrimp. And
And a green phantom.
so then we'll probably be getting, if she orders from Wet Spot, we'll probably be getting 2 kinds of fish at once. I've got her looking on Aquabid so that she can see all the types and varieties of rainbows there are out there. I mean, we have our water parameters to go with. I want to keep the TDS in the 350 range for these green jade shrimp. Green jades are not very common in the hobby. One reason why that Lucas tells me is that they won't breed true, that they'll keep throwing different kinds of shrimp. But I want to try to keep them and line breed them out so we can try to narrow down the numbers that they throw of strange. Bye, Andrew. Thanks for stopping by, man. Hope you have a good day. Yeah, Luke Diesel's website is flipaquatics.com, just like FLIP.
Green jades are super cool.
I should be able to link them up here for you in a second.
In Ohio.
Yeah. But by the same token, I would suggest that you look at Lucas's shrimp too, which is lrbaquatics.com, because Lucas has some really fine lines too. Valley Fish, I have used cucumber before, but I have had very little luck in my fish being interested in it. I mean, L260s are mostly carnivores. They do eat a lot of vegetation, but they're more off-leash grazers and carnivores. Oh, I just got bogged down trying to get to the exact page that had the green jades on it. It's basically Neocaridina, which is why it was taking me so long. And then I hit Control V instead of Control C, which typed the last address that I had open into that spot, so I had to go back. Okay, guys, we're coming up on an hour and 20 minutes, and that's usually what I've been running. I know it sounded like from before that a couple of other people were interested in streaming in this spot. So I think I'll close it off here and give... I may have been mistaken, but I thought Charles said that he wanted to stream in this spot. Because actually Bob normally streamed at like 8 o'clock on Saturday night. But I've been streaming earlier than that. 8 o'clock kind of interferes with dinner for me sometimes. So it's fine to listen to a stream, but it's kind of rough to run a stream. So thank you all for coming, and be careful what you put in that 10-gallon tank that you get. And we'll talk to you later.